Rise and shine. This is your morning Buzzcast for Friday, February 28th. I'm Austin Karp, bookending this final week of the month. You know, I have tons of conversations with folks from all across the sports industry, and so many use their families as these kind of like small laboratories, particularly when it comes to how people are consuming sports. Well, my two boys are finally getting to an age where I can finally get some serious answers out of them, and I'm also watching how they're consuming their sports. For 2 nights in a row now, all my oldest can talk about is the Trailblazers' Shaden Sharp, who had this amazing dunk on the Wizards on Wednesday night, but I was curious how he even came across it. We live in Charlotte, weren't watching League Pass that night, haven't really watched SportsCenter in a while, and this all came to his attention when his text thread of middle school friends were passing along highlights they like to check out from the NBA's YouTube page. On the weekends, that text banter usually turns into online NBA 2K play with those same friends, and boom, you have an NBA nut job living under my roof and influencing his younger brother at the same time. They were even excited to see and watch this recent Court of Gold and We Beat the Dream Team documentaries with me. I was all about that. They want to play more basketball, and I'm just loving their love of the sport. We take in a few live games each year, we'll watch on TV, and it's the byproduct of things like these YouTube highlights and playing NBA 2K, kind of the reverse way that I came into my love of basketball, which was first playing on the court, then developing as a fan watching TV, and maybe then down the road gaming and watching highlights on SportsCenter. But with this next generation of fans, I can see why the NBA thought it was a wise business decision to continue partnering with Warner Bros. Discovery's House of Highlights and Bleacher Report when those next media deals kick in. Anyways, just a fascinating look at some basketball fandom in my household. Let's get to some news making waves in the world of sports business. I want to start down in the state of Texas. First, in the Metroplex, the Irving City Council last night reviewed zoning amendments during a work session with an eye toward luring the Mavericks out of downtown Dallas. The changes in zoning will apply to a 182-acre tract of land, 108 acres of which are owned by an entity connected to Las Vegas Sands Corp., which just so happens to share ownership with Mavericks majority owner Miriam Adelson. This effort would entail a big mixed-use district alongside an arena that would have a minimum 15,000 seats and or an indoor theater with a minimum 4,000 seats. This plot of land is around 9 miles northwest of downtown Dallas, but as anyone who's driven around the Metroplex can tell you, that's a long 9 miles. Now, new Mavericks president Rick Welts has said an arena project is what he will spend most of his time on in year one. The Mavs' 30-year lease at American Airlines Center ends in the summer of 2031. Now, Irving was obviously home to the Cowboys for 38 years before the NFL club moved across the Metroplex to Arlington. They're now neighbors with MLB's Rangers. The Cowboys, of course, practice on the other side of the market in Frisco. That's home to MLS's FC Dallas, a Double-A baseball team, and the new PGA Frisco golf course, which is going to be the site of the PGA Championship in 2 years, not to mention serving as the headquarters, a swanky headquarters, for the PGA of America now. If the Mavericks left for Irving, I'm sure the Stars would be incredibly happy to have that downtown arena to themselves. Stars team president Brad Alberts has said as much. The WNBA's Wings are actually leaving Arlington for downtown next year, but they're going to play at a renovated Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, not the AAC. So, keep your eye on all the moving parts going on in Dallas and its ever-growing suburbs and what the Mavericks are going to be doing. They got new team ownership. There's a new team president in place. Obviously, a new director with team talent post Luka. And of particular importance to Miriam Adelson and Patrick Dumont, owners of the Mavs, potential changes on gambling and sports betting laws in the state. Also in Texas, my colleague Ben Fisher last night in his SBJ football newsletter had the first chat with new Houston Texans president Mike Tomon, the longtime Legends executive who just took over the NFL club. Like the Mavericks, the Texans have a venue situation on their hands. They are also tenants. They're at NRG Stadium, and that 22-year-old venue needs work. The Houston Business Journal had gotten their hands on some designs, retrofits being tossed around, and those concepts, those are from architectural firm HKS, pegged the cost of a glitzy revamp at between $1.7 and $2 billion. Like the Mavericks, the Texans' lease expires after the 2031 season. Harris County owns that NFL facility and the surrounding complex, so a public vote would be needed if the Texans were to go after public dollars. But Tomon called the Texans' role that he just stepped into a one-of-one opportunity. He also said that renovations, not a new stadium, are the priority for that NFL club. The team wants to bring Super Bowls back to Houston. Remember, there are a number of shiny new venues either online or coming online across the league. So keeping up with the Joneses, and I guess that's a pun looking at AT&T Stadium just 3.5 hours north, that means modern trends in fan experience at your venue. But this is an area that Tomon touched on a lot at Legends. He worked projects like SoFi Stadium and Allegiant Stadium, so he knows what a modern NFL venue needs to have. The good news for Tomon, the Texans are strong in the AFC South. They have a young franchise quarterback, and fans keep coming to games, so paying attention to the stadium is something that he can do. Twice a year now, we get a dump of internal data from Netflix covering all of their titles. Well, the latest batch came out the other day covering the back half of 2024, and I was very intrigued by some of the data, particularly the sports titles on Netflix. My first takeaway, entirely too many of us watched the second season of Squid Game. That was far and away the most watched title on the platform, but the surprise for me overall, for sports, was how high that Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight ranked on the service. Number 7 overall from July through December. That's among all of Netflix's titles. It's ahead of Cobra Kai Season 6, ahead of Outer Banks Season 4, or Lincoln Lawyer Season 3. I know a lot of you watch that. Hasn't been on my queue, haven't seen any of that, but I know it's popular. Per these internal Netflix views, again, this is not a third-party audit number, all internal, Netflix is claiming that the Paul Tyson views were around 70% better than the total views for the NFL doubleheader on Christmas Day. A head-scratching figure there. Again, internal numbers. It's a shame that Netflix and most valuable promotions didn't get that fight measured by Nielsen, which remains the industry standard, because we can only guess at what the number would have been for that fight and what it might have looked like. Instead, the fight's real audience number will likely never be known. But how did some other sports titles do on Netflix in that back half of 2024? Among the winners for me, the dramatic series Senna, that was based on the real life of the late F1 champion, Ayrton Senna. Also, the docuseries Mr. McMahon, which covered Vince McMahon, really good numbers for that. Simone Biles docuseries, also a draw, as was season 1 of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders docuseries. That's already been renewed for a season 2. On the flip side, some documentaries that need to do some work on the numbers. That Aaron Rodgers documentary didn't really live up to the hype, didn't get much traction there. Omaha Productions, which did Quarterback last year, also saw the audience for its second documentary, Receiver, that was in the back half of 24, not come close to what Quarterback was able to do. Receiver was focused on Amon-Ra St. Brown, George Kittle, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, and Deebo Samuel, just not at the same level of something following Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. I'd expect a switch likely back to that quarterback position with a third iteration of the docuseries. You need big names there. You need quarterbacks. Those are who people want to see. But even more of a surprise to me on Netflix were the low numbers for starting 5. That followed LeBron, Anthony Edwards, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, Domantas Sabonis. That audience was around half of what a docuseries previewing the Paul Tyson fight got. Also on the low end on Netflix, Comeback, that was the docuseries focused on the 2004 Red Sox. I don't know if it's concerning or not, but there's another docuseries coming out on the Red Sox this year. We'll see if fans really want to pay attention to the Red Sox on Netflix. With Netflix's next data drop coming late in the summer, that's when we'll get a first look at how WWE Raw numbers are performing on the service, so something to look forward to there. A couple of nuggets to wrap things up this morning. The UFL is getting its first taste of labor strife. All 24 quarterbacks in the league held out of a pre-training camp gathering. Obviously, a very noticeable level of collective action, especially at that position. Any big salary increases, though, would kind of blow up the cost containment concepts that the UFL is built on. So let's see how the UFL Players Union and the league seek a way forward with that. The SportsCenter Top 10 to start a show? Well, that's the new concept coming on SC Plus. It's a 15-minute commercial-free version of SportsCenter, 9 a.m. on weekdays, but it's going to be on Disney Plus, that streaming service. That's going to launch on Monday at 9 a.m. Weekday hosts Gary Streisky and Randy Scott broke the news on the SBJ Sports Media Podcast with Molly Cahalan and I yesterday. ESPN production executive Mike Foss also talked to Molly about the effort, and he pointed out the opportunity around Disney Plus's 125 million users. I have to expect we'll see new and innovative efforts like this as ESPN gets closer to the takeoff of its flagship OTT product in the fall. IndyCar season gets underway this weekend in St. Petersburg, down in Florida. The longtime race title sponsor Bridgestone just signed on for another 3 years that'll extend its deal through 2028. This is also the first season you're going to have IndyCar on Fox Sports. So you got NASCAR, the Cup Series, NHRA, IndyCar, and now even MotoGP all on Fox Sports this season. A lot of motor racing, plenty of speed at Fox Sports this season. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the passing of Gene Hackman, the cornerstone of Hoosiers, one of the all-time great sports movies. The locker room scene, an obvious classic. YouTube that if you haven't seen it in a while. I also have a soft spot for another of his sports movies, The Replacement. And there's even a sports tie to my favorite role of Hackman's, and that was as the blind man in Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein. Hackman, obviously a well-known serious actor at the time of that movie, was playing tennis with Gene Wilder when Wilder told him about this little role in the film. Hackman was interested and had always wanted to do a comedic part. Mel Brooks was ecstatic to have him, and the rest is history. Love him in Young Frankenstein. So, that is your morning Buzzcast for Friday, February 28th. I'm Austin Karp. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Make good choices out there, and I will speak to you all again soon.